Hello and welcome to The Lucky Roll, an eclectic channel for eclectic games. And today we're reviewing Top Gun by Prospero Hall and Mixlore Games. This is Lieutenant Sean, call sign Fatman. Normally I'd be up there with Goose and Maverick, but for some reason the plane wouldn't take off. The game itself is a two-player strategy volleyball hybrid, in which players compete in two distinctive games that are reminiscent of the classic scenes from the Top Gun movie, such as volleyball and jet dogfighting. Players, by winning the volleyball subgame, gain extra moves or abilities that they can then use in the dogfighting phase. The first player to gain 12 points in the dogfighting phase wins the game and is named Top Gun. Now, before I go into details, I have to take off my reviewer hat for a second and explain why I bought the game. I was browsing my local bookstore for a birthday gift for James and saw this on display. Indeed, given the bright pink, yellow and purple luminescent colours adorning the box, it was actually quite hard to miss it. It was a very good price and seemed cheesy enough that it would give James a good laugh and, lead to some fun banter, given that he is an avowed movie buff. I expected him to laugh, throw a few choice swear words at me and move on. And the truth of it is, we were both pleasantly surprised. We did an unboxing video for the game that you can see a link to here or in the description box below. And for a game that was the price it was, the sheer quality of the components seriously impressed us. The aesthetic of the game is also, to be frank, spot on. Top Gun is an iconic movie of the 80s, and the 80s, of course, is the decade of loud colours and fluorescent pink, and this game, to its credit, has decided to utterly own that. The bright colour palettes of pink, ice blue and purple with an electric blue style vibe raises a smile given the often hinted at subtext of the movie. But here in the game, it just nails the vibe of both the movie and the decade to an absolute T. For the price you pay for this game, the components and aesthetic on offer here is superb value for money. As for the game itself, it's broken into two components. A volleyball phase, complete with little net and standees that can't help but raise a smile the first time you take it out, and a dogfighting phase, which to its credit is more elaborate and strategic than I had initially thought. The volleyball phase is basic enough, with both players setting out a 9x9 grid on either side of the volleyball net. For every score you get in your opponent, you receive either a targeting defense card or a maneuver token to use in the subsequent dogfighting phase. The player who wins the volleyball game decides whether they're going to be the attacker or the defender in the next game. Players win the volleyball game by revealing their opponent's cards by moving the volleyball token to them. If the revealed card is a bump, set or spike, the volleyball moves again. If the revealed card is a whiff, the attacking player has scored, and the first to 3 whiffs wins the phase. It's a small, little cheesy game, but to be honest, I liked it. It gave the sense of rivalry for the protagonists, both in the air and on the ground, and it serves as a fun break between dogfighting sessions. The dogfighting phase is more complicated, with a hexagonal grid dictating player movement, and targeting and defense cards allowing players to both attack and defend against each other's attacks. This is, in turn, further elaborated upon with dice rolls, where the amount of dice rolled is modified by the targeting and defense cards, but also the height of the fighter jets. There are 4 heights for the fighter jets, and depending on the height your plane is at, it can limit both movement and attacks in dogfighting with your opponent. This, in particular, is a very interesting mechanic that is missing from similar games such as Star Wars X-Wing or Star Trek Attack Wing, and I found my attempts to maintain both height and second-guess the maneuvering of my opponent led to some very tense fights, with the more ambitious and extreme movements costing me height. The purpose for the attacker is simply to get a successful target lock on the defender. The defender, however, has other options. They can win the phase if they in turn manage a successful target lock on the attacker, or if they manage to collect 3 of the 4 waypoint tokens that dot the board. Ironically enough, the advantage is with the defender, as only they can collect the waypoint tokens for a score of 2 points per token and achieve a target lock for a potential maximum score of 9, whereas the attacker can only get a maximum score of 5 in the hop dogfighting phase. The first player to 12 points wins the game. The waypoint mechanic adds a nice motivation to the phase for the defender to try and fly away from the opponent, and gives the attacker a few hints as to the potential direction that the defender might fly to. Rather than constantly circling each other, I found that as the attacker, dogfighting consisted of me trying to impede the defender's ability to collect points and to try and take him down as soon as possible. I came to this game expecting a cheap cash grab, and instead ended up being very pleasantly surprised at the depth, aesthetic and tone struck by the game, and how its cheesiness actually helped capture the tone of the movie rather than detract from it. This is by no means a game I would suggest that anyone who isn't a Top Gun fan to go out and get, but if you do have a friend or a fondness for the movie yourself, you could actually do a lot worse than add this to your collection, especially for the price that it is available at. The only downsides to this game that I can outline is that the components are fiddly, especially on the playing tokens, and the instruction book is quite poorly written. For a game that, once you grasp the mechanics, is quite simple, I found the instructions often to be more of a hindrance than a help to the game. I did, however, have a great laugh with everyone I have played this game with, as it leads to great banter about the movie, the 80s, Tom Cruise movies, and gives a nice feeling of competitiveness in a 1v1 game. The 2x2 player aspect, however, isn't really worth bothering with, as the only difference is another player other than yourself chooses the targeting defense cards, and the maneuver tokens are often too complex and bitty to effectively be able to discuss properly with a co-pilot. When all's said and done though, this game is much more Maverick than it is Goose. This is Sean from The Lucky Roll. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. And until next time, good luck, God bless, and remember, turn and burn.